And we're back with AP as we see it. And I just wanted to go over some things with the Super Bowl 59, the Kansas City Chiefs. Everyone thought they might three-peat. Most of the media through the week, they were surrounding the Kansas City players. There were much more in attendance for those press conferences than the Philadelphia Eagles. But it was supposed to be a close game. The spread was 1 point, 2 points, something of that nature. But when you saw the opening series for Kansas City and Philadelphia with their defensive line, putting Patrick Mahomes on the run, sacking him, you knew that was going to be a long day for him. I think that Philadelphia really exposed Patrick Mahomes to this degree. He's very good moving in the pocket, making the throws from all the angles because he has that baseball background, and that's something he's done very well, won multiple Super Bowls. But I think that if you keep him on edge all game, he was not very accurate on Sunday for Super Bowl 59, and there's no way he can be very accurate running around that pocket all game. So I think that's the formula to beat Patrick Mahomes. It's easier said than done, but Philadelphia had a very good defense. They had a couple turnovers. There was three turnovers in the game. Patrick fumbled once and a couple interceptions as well. One was a pick six. Cooper, the defensive back from Iowa, I remember voting him All-American. He was very good, very athletic. But anyhow, you can get to Patrick Mahomes, cause some uproar in the backfield, but they didn't have a running game. Travis Kelce, the tight end, he's been an All-Pro, but he was shut down, dropped a couple of passes. He was very ineffective. Xavier Worthy, the rookie wide receiver from the University of Texas, he provides the speed. But when you were looking at Kansas City and trying to figure out what would happen in the game, I didn't have any worry about any of their receivers. Like Xavier Worthy, of course, the University of Texas wide receiver, and you know that you have to stop Travis Kelce. But I just thought Philadelphia's defense would be up to the task. There's no way I thought the score would be 34-0 at one point. But I liked Philadelphia because of their balanced offense. Two excellent receivers, Devontae Smith out of Alabama, A.J. Brown out of Ole Miss, good tight end, offensive line, excellent, coached by Jeff Stoutland, by the way, who was the offensive line coach at Alabama. And, of course, you had Jalen Hurts in the backfield. This was his second Super Bowl. He was getting better and better. And then you also had the X Factor, Saquon Barkley, a 2,000-yard runner. Now, he didn't have a big game against Kansas City, but you had to devote resources to try to contain him. And Jalen Hurts was the MVP, received that Pete Rozelle MVP award. And Jalen has improved over the course of his career. And we're going to discuss some of those things about Jalen. I think that's the perfect team for him. You can look at other quarterbacks that you might put on that team, but Jalen, he does not, even in his college career, he wasn't prone to turn the ball over. He utilizes all of his talented wide receivers, running back, and he's not one to overextend himself. Yes, he can run. You saw him run for 72 yards on 11 carries in the ball game, but he's a person that is very efficient and makes minimal mistakes. I think he's the perfect quarterback for that Philadelphia Eagles team. Now, when you're looking at the Super Bowl from the SEC perspective, 59 Super Bowls. So how many quarterbacks from the SEC started? How many quarterbacks started from the SEC? Well, there's Bart Starr, has a couple Super Bowls. Joe Namath from Alabama, Bart Starr from Alabama, Kenny Stabler from Alabama. Then you had Jalen Hurts with a couple of starts. He's 1-1. Bart Starr was 2-0. Joe Namath 1-0. Kenny Stabler 1-0. Then you had Matt Stafford, University of Georgia. He's 1-0. You had Peyton Manning, started 4 Super Bowls. He's 2-2, and Eli Manning was 2-0. So that's the record in the Super Bowl. The SEC quarterbacks, it's 13 games. They were 10-3. They had 10 victories and 3 losses. So that's 22% of the Super Bowls. You had SEC quarterbacks starting the game, 13 games. So that's a pretty significant number when you're trying to engage the SEC quarterbacks in the Super Bowl. 59 Super Bowls, 10-3 record. But they were MVPs as well. Bart Starr was an MVP twice. Super Bowl 1 and 2. Joe Namath was the MVP Super Bowl 3. That's a historic game for the AFC to win the first time. Kenny Stabler was played it one in the Super Bowl. That's Super Bowl 11. You had Peyton Manning. He played in 4 Super Bowls. Super Bowl 41. He played in Super Bowl 44, and he played in Super Bowl 48 and also Super Bowl 50. Won twice. He was the MVP twice. He was the MVP once, I believe it was. Eli Manning played in 2 Super Bowls. He was the MVP. He played in Super Bowl 46, and he played in Super Bowl 42. Oh, yeah, 40. I think it was 50. Well, whatever. He played in 2 Super Bowls. Jalen Hurts played in Super Bowl 59. Matthew Stafford played in Super Bowl 56. And so those were the SEC quarterbacks that were in the Super Bowl. And matter of fact, all the SEC quarterbacks, they won a minimum, at least one game, at least one Super Bowl. So that's pretty impressive in and of itself, because some lost but they came back to win, or vice versa. But that's pretty impressive to have SEC quarterbacks winning those Super Bowl games. Now, we want to look at Jalen Hurts. He had 221 yards on 17 of 22 passing. As I mentioned, 72 yards rushing on 11 carries. He joins 2 fraternities at the University of Alabama. One, he won a Super Bowl, and also he was the MVP. So he joins the MVP category with Bart Starr, who won 2, and Joe Namath, who won 1 Super Bowl MVP, and then, of course, Kenny Stabler. So those 4 quarterbacks at Alabama, they all won a minimum of 1 Super Bowl. We also want to mention the fact that DeVonta Smith, believe it or not, all those Alabama players in the Super Bowl, in the 59 Super Bowls, he was the first one to score a touchdown. First Alabama player ever to score a touchdown, and he's only the 5th player in the history to win the Heisman Trophy. He also had a college football national championship with Alabama, and he won the Super Bowl. And he won the Super Bowl in his home state of Louisiana. He had 4 receptions. We know the bomb, about 60 yards for a TD. So those are 2 Alabama players that set some records. There were historic days for DeVonta Smith and Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts, as I understand it, Roger Goodell, he said at the press conference, Jalen Hurts is the first quarterback to pass for 200 yards and have 50-plus yards on the ground. So that was an historic day for him. But those, and then the touchdown between the 2 Alabama players, that's kind of really ironic. The very first touchdown scored by an Alabama player came from an Alabama quarterback. So that's something for the Alabama fans to celebrate. But Jalen Hurts, like I said, I think he's the perfect quarterback for that team. He's minimal with his mistakes. He's a good enough passer, as we saw. And, he was the MVP of the game. He laid in some nice long throws down the sideline, down the middle to DeVonta Smith. And he was just exceptional in his performance. The 1 interception did not hurt the team. And he called the right plays at the line of scrimmage. He ran at the appropriate time for the 72 yards. And they just were relentless, putting points on the board, and Kansas City could never recover. Philadelphia's defense was ferocious. Patrick Mahomes, he was running for his life. There's no way he was going to have a successful day. He couldn't get the ball. And then when he did throw the football, he wasn't that accurate many times. So like I said, the formula to beat Patrick Mahomes, get after him, make him run around, even though he's very good. We've seen the miracles he's performed through the years. But Philadelphia had his number this particular game. Their plan was tremendous. Nick Sirianni, I thought, looking at the game early, Andy Reid, I felt that he might go to the short passing game because his offensive line was not protecting Patrick Mahomes and did not have enough time. There's no way he could hold the ball in that pocket. He was, as I said, running for his life. I thought they'd call some screens, but Philadelphia just jumped on him, and then it was too late. But when you have a pass rush that is getting to your quarterback and not leaving him at least minimum of 3 seconds, you have to come up with an alternate scheme. and I didn't see it from Kansas City. I just think that was, and Andy Reid I consider a tremendous coach, Hall of Fame coach, no question. He has the most wins for, I think, Kansas City and Philadelphia, ironically. But I believe that if he looks back at this Super Bowl, he's going to think to himself, we should have started off with that short passing game, get it out to our wide receivers and playmakers, or to our tight end, Travis Kelce, or maybe try to run the football. But I think he's going to have a different idea about the next time he plays in the Super Bowl with a ferocious pass rush. But anyhow, we're going to be back after these messages with another segment of AP as we see it. So stay tuned.